Welcome to The Lab, where we talk about life and beats with creators in electronic music around the world. Brought to you by Pushing Buttons Collective.
Today, we have a very talented, amazing individual. I met her. I actually found out about her through the internet. When we were doing our first Women's Month event, we were trying to figure out who we wanted to perform. And we were just going through Instagram and going online and whatnot. And I found a video of her on YouTube where she was in her studio working with this MC, and the beats were so crazy that she played. I was like, okay, we gotta reach out to her. And fortunately, she was receptive. She got down with us. She killed it at the first Women's Month PBC event, and she's been pretty much rocking with us ever since. Welcome to the show, Ms.Madli. What's good?
Hey. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you for being with us. So, Ms.Madli, what's the origin story? How did you get into this thing called beats and just music in general?
So it's a long story, but I'm originally from Europe, Estonia, and over there I studied classical piano for about 7 years, and also singing, classical singing. I was in choirs, and I did a whole bunch of music-related stuff. My parents are also in music, so it was kind of part of my life the whole time, but I never really found my space in it because I didn't want to be a performer. I didn't enjoy singing in front of people as much, nor did I want it to be a pianist or performer of an instrument. So until I discovered, beat making, and I really fell in love, it was about like 14, 15 years ago, and I started first making my beats. And when you first get into this, you're kind of like naive and think that, oh yeah, it's going to take a few years and you're just going to, ride into the sunset with your heartbeats and get some major placements right away and stuff. But it has been like a long journey. And throughout that journey, I moved to the States. I went and studied engineering and production in IAR.
Okay.
And then
What's IIR?
Institute of Audio Research.
Yeah, Institute of Audio Research.
Ah, okay.
Legendary school, yeah.
So yeah, they closed 2 years ago, but I graduated 2008. From then I started working in the studio as a production assistant. And that kind of helped me learn all the technical aspects of music making, studio life. So I was recording people. I was learning new DAWs and new VSTs all the time. And from then, I kind of felt more comfortable making my own music and, playing it to other people. And I want to say, I think it was 2015 was when I felt comfortable enough to get in front of people, and I did my first beat battle. I won a beat battle in New York by standard.
Word.
And from then on, I competed a bunch of other battles, and that kind of opened the door for me, in the industry a little bit. And that's how I met you guys and a lot of awesome people that are doing the same thing in New York.
Word.
How do you balance your time between the underground beat scene and this industry that you're referring to? Or are they all under the same umbrella? How would you describe those two worlds?
I think the beat making is just like a way to get in the industry. At least that was, I think it was a vehicle for me rather than something where I want to stay. It's just a platform for you to meet cool artists and other like-minded people. People are making music and producing. So I think I was just like a doorway for me.
Word.
Cool.
So before the I standard, before you started, making beats and playing them out, I understand that you were doing a lot of stuff for TV. You were composing and
Yeah, I did that. And then that was kind of parallel to making beats because like licensing world was kind of something that came with the studio that I worked in.
okay.
So I did a couple of tracks for this guy who owns a music library, and then they liked it, and then they took them in the library, and I got my first placements through that, and that's how I kind of got going in the licensing world. But
Mhm.
at the same time, my main goal has always still been working with artists and getting more into that world.
Okay. And what artists have you been working with as far as R&B or
Um,
hip hop?
yeah, they're mostly in hip hop. Some R&B. I guess the biggest placement thus far I have is with Yelawolf that just came out
Right.
2 months ago, and I have a lot of stuff in the works, which I don't want to jinx it, but some also with some major artists. But the stuff is like you never know how it is or what it is until it actually comes out.
Right.
So, and I've worked with some people in Atlanta. Worked with just recently worked with Elle Varner, which was amazing through Gender
Yeah, Control
Amplified.
Room series. How was that? Tell us about that process and that experience.
It was really cool. She was super down to earth, and we were just vibing and making good music. And I think that's the most important part, which I was a little um, I just didn't know what to expect,
Right.
but it turned out to be an amazing experience. And we actually finished the song as well, and we're scheduling another appointment to kind of meet up and finish it up.
Word.
Word.
Who else was out there? It was V Notes. Ebony Smith was out there. Who else was in that series?
Uh, V Notes, Posy was there.
Ozzy
Cool.
Bell.
Gloria, yeah, and Gloria Calvo. I work with her all the 3 sessions that we had, and she's amazing. I just love working with her. So we took our collaboration to outside the Control Room series, and we've been working together. So it was overall like a super, beautiful experience, and I made a lot of really good connections and met a lot of really talented folks.
Okay, let's take a pause for the cause and listen to this track by Ms.Madli called Lady.
about the climate of, you know, women in music in general, and women producers, women that produce music in particular, especially with the Creator Suite and Gender Amplified and Disc Women, who these organizations that are pushing to have women be more visible um, in music. How do you feel that the climate's changing?
I think it's definitely changing, and these organizations are doing an important. They have an important job, and you know, it's tough. It's like a really tricky subject because on one hand, like yes, you want to emphasize women that are doing these things, but at the same time, you kind of want to normalize this without, you know, putting it on a pedestal, you know? So at the end of the day, we all want to get recognized because of the work that we do, not because we're females. So it's a kind of like a tough balance there. But again, like that work needs to be done. Like people need to see and hear women do awesome things. So yeah, it's definitely changing. I can see it every year, actually, you know, getting better and better for us.
Right, right. And I mean, as far as like with male artists, male artists, I mean, how do you think that they, how are they reacting to seeing a woman in the studio behind the boards?
I think it's always about whether they know your work or not. If they just see you there, I'm sure, you know, it's a different story. But like once, I've never had an issue with once they know what I can do, you know, as far as production and engineering goes, if I have to engineer, then I've never had an issue with that or anybody say anything, you know, sideways towards that. So I think it's a matter of just like your work being good, so you don't have to, you know, put out disclaimers or apologize for anything. You just do what you're there to do, and you do it, you know, great. So
right, you'd be great. You're great. Word.
Who are some of your influences, Madli? I know you have a very specific type of sound. Maybe start by describing your sound, and then some of the people who kind of led you down that route.
So my sound, I have like a variety of styles that have influenced me. A lot of the stuff that I heard as a child in Estonia, like in Estonia and 70s rock and psychedelic rock has influenced me a lot. Also Euro pop and stuff that I grew up to, but definitely hip hop wise, it was the raw, gritty 90s underground stuff that really made an impact. And my first, I remember my first introduction to hip hop was the Wu-Tang Forever, like double cassette back in 1997. Because like I was still in Estonia, so we didn't have like a hip hop section in a record store was like 4 CDs and like 2 cassettes and stuff like that. So it was super rare. Somebody's aunt was in the States and they sent it to Estonia, and I was able to, that was like a gift. So that's how I kind of got into it. And I fell in love with the rhythm and just the music part of it, because my English was okay, but like I couldn't understand the slang or anything like that. So all of that lyrical stuff I kind of learned afterwards, but I just fell in love with the music, you know, so.
Dope.
I had a follow-up question for you regarding your influences. You mentioned psychedelic rock coming from Estonia, and then you also mentioned Europop. I'm wondering if you can get a little more specific.
Oof. So there's some really cool Estonian composers, and they make, like Sven Grünberg is one of them, and his music was super, like, I don't know, super airy and weird, but at the same time it just made sense. And my parents had vinyls which they played when we were kids. It's like nothing that you would want to play for your kids, but like it just happened. And then I there's something about his sound that I really, really like to this day. I've sampled him too, but I also just enjoy creating something similar to that every now and then. And Europop was just the top 40 that was coming from Germany at that time. So a lot of that was happening in the States was when, like about 4 or 5 years ago, when people were sampling the songs that were hot in Europe that probably didn't make it to America, but I could recognize them because that's the music that I was like pumping in high school. So
We need some examples. We need some
I
examples.
forget the name of the song. There was this song, Blue, and I got I think Fluoride. I used it, and there's been some other songs. I can't remember like the names. Like if you give me some time, I can look up probably the names of these songs.
So you're talking about like I'm blue, da ba dee da ba da. Is that the one?
That's
Yeah.
the
Okay.
one.
Oh man, my daughter loves that song.
There's a
That's
new
a
like Dembow version called Eos. That's out. That's like hot. Like I hear cars bumping it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh,
yeah.
really?
Yeah, man. Like
Oh,
it's
man.
kind of hot.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but there's one more that was super big. I just can't remember the name, but it had like the synthy like melody that's been used like in 4 or 5 like hip hop records.
There was a Wiz
recently.
Khalifa song that came out like maybe like mid 2000s that it was like Wiz Khalifa's first like big song. Like man, it's escaping me now. But I want to say it sampled Banga Boys. Like the Banga bus is coming or something. And like they trapped it out and it was kind of dope.
Right now, we're going to take another break and vibe out to this track by Ms.Madli called Bat.
So you mentioned earlier about like your style. You have various styles, which I all three of us have bore witness to, where you can glide easily from a trap sounding beat to some boom bap to some ready for the radio R&B, and also just like your sound in general, like sonically, is just so put together so well. I mean, walk us through the process of like picking your sounds, the Reader's Digest version, of course, but picking the sounds. I know you engineer in the box, and how you come out with these incredible creations that,
Oh, thank you.
yeah.
I get inspired by a sound first, so it's usually the melody first to me, and then I don't use a lot of samples these days, but sometimes I use sounds.com sometimes, or I have producer friends who would send me some loops and they want to collab. So sometimes if I'm out of inspiration, I go to these sites or pick something from my friends' kits and just mess around with the sound. I usually don't want to use the sound the way it is. I either play over something or just use a little part. And it often happens when you think you have an idea, but then inspiration takes over and then the song ends up somewhere else, and you might not even end up using the original piece that you started with. But I take a long time. So I'm super anal with my stuff. Like I sit with a track for at least a week, And sometimes it's not even like putting in the whole 40 hours to the beat, but I do enjoy listening to my track with fresh ears. I think that's super crucial. So sometimes like I start something, but I almost don't want to keep playing it too many times. So then the next morning when I wake up, I want to be like hearing it as if I was a random person hearing it for the first time.
Right.
And but you can only do it thus much, so like only a few times, you know, after a while you're already familiar with how it goes and stuff. So that's one of the little tricks that I use that I think has helped me a lot. And especially mixing wise, like hearing the snare that you forgot the way it sounded is crucial, you know, to me. But yeah, I orchestrate a lot. I recently got into using Machine,
Okay.
which I'm still kind of learning. I used to kind of play everything in Logic in a keyboard.
Right.
On a keyboard, and I used to just draw in the automation. So to get the right you know, dynamics, I used to do that in automation wise rather than you know, using the machine. So now on a machine, I know I've wasted a lot of time doing too much work when I could have just used the drum pad. But yeah, that's that.
And
So,
like your
yeah.
VSTs, I noticed that you really praise Omnisphere.
I really do, because they like if you use like a lot of VSTs, like after a while they all start to kind of sound the same. But the way Omnisphere sounds, some of the sounds, especially like some vibes and bells and stuff like that, they have a great balance of synthesized sounds and organic sample sounds. So that to me is like the biggest bonus about Omnisphere. And also it's like the tweakability of stuff. If you want to go in, you can really go in changing your sounds and, you know, moving away from the presets.
Right.
How is Omnisphere different from like Splice and stuff? This is a question for the group. I don't know. Are there other like services like Omnisphere?
Well, Omnisphere, it's a VST, so it's like an actual instrument, and then
Okay.
Splice, you would actually either get the sounds on loan or download the sounds with a subscription service.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you know, you have Splice, you have Sounds. What's another one that's out?
Isn't there like Loop Cloud or something? Like Loop Masters has something.
Loop, yeah, I think they have Loop Cloud. There's another one that's escaping me, and I can't remember.
Arcade. They started.
Arcade,
yeah. They started doing that too. Output started doing that as well.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's the way you know, loop libraries are going. I think it's less of like, let me buy a pack of 30 sounds and maybe use 2 or 3,
right,
versus, you know, being able to go there and just pick the one that you really like, you know. So
Right. So I mean, speaking of these services, I know that you've been working a lot with Sounds, where you actually, you know, have your own sound packs, trapping things, volume 1 and 2, and you're killing the game with that. You know, I haven't bought it yet, but I've listened to it. And I'm like, whoa, she's wow.
Yeah, this is actually really cool for my own like, I guess, sake too, because I can like, this makes you kind of go out of your normal ways of making music and kind of, you know, because you make a pack and you don't want all the sounds to sound the same, so you pull up some other, I don't know, modulation plugins and stuff, and kind of explore a little more than you would normally do. So I discovered this cool plugin, Cable Box, which is amazing. I think it does some like really cool stuff, and that's been super helpful making those packs, especially trapping things, because it does a lot of the reverse stuff and the sound that's kind of hot right now.
Right.
And, you know, super modulated. So
Does it have like glitch
mo-
effects in it or something? Or
It's not. It has that too, but it's more so it reverses. There's one of the things that I use a lot is like the reverse sound.
Mhm.
So if I pull in like the cool sounding loop from somewhere else, even like I'll just put a reverse on it and play around like that. But it has filters. It has pitch shifting. So like it would only pitch shift like the bottom, like the base of your
Oh,
loop, for example,
word.
or reverse only the loop, like like frequencies below a certain
Oh,
like maybe
wow. That's cool.
500 and stuff. So it does some cool stuff. You just have to kind of get in and play around. Not every preset there works for everything. Sometimes you got to tweak it, but it's a really cool thing to play around with.
Right, right.
Um, I'm super big fan of output stuff, and especially Exhale. Um, so that I used a lot of that making trapping things. And then
Exhale. I'm not
yeah,
familiar with it. Or what is that? I know I imagine it's a VST, but
it is, and it's basically only vocal chops,
ah,
but they're processed in a really cool way. And in some of them you can play, they're like key, like they're spread around a key, so you can play it in tune, and some of them are in key, but then you have the option to pitch shift it to fit your composition. So yeah, it's and then there's a ton of sounds there. So if you're looking for these trap soul type muffled female vocals or whatever,
right.
it's perfect for that. You don't have to sample anything. You can just go over there and then find the one that fits and tweak it to fit your track, and you're good to go.
Oh, word. Yeah, I saw some. I mean, they always have ads on YouTube, and I saw something with output with the chopping of the vocals, and I was like, oh, it's pretty dope. I mean, for me, I would just like chop up some acapellas, but nah, the fact you have that available, it's pretty amazing. And what has been the response with trapping things?
Oh, it's been really, really positive. Like some awesome people have followed me who are doing the same thing. So it's definitely been super positive, and I'm due to make another one because I have a contract with Sounds. So there's a third one coming. I'm working on it currently, but yeah, it's been super good, super
Yeah,
nice.
I was just about to ask you about sounds.com. It says you're a sound bender for sounds.com. What does that mean? What does that look like?
Sounds.com is a website by Native Instruments. So it's a site that sells samples and loops made by producers for producers, and they're royalty free, so you can use them in your work without having to look for clearance.
Cool.
And so it's kind of the new way of sampling. And selling the sound kits like we discussed before. So sounds.com is just one of the ones that's out, and they're doing the same thing like this Splice is doing in Arcade.
Okay, we're going to take another break and check out this track by Ms.Madli called Fusion.
sound packs, I mean, you know, as a producer, you know, a lot of producers, they feel that their main stream of income is like, I got to get this placement on this album. You don't even know if it's going to come out. So now we have new streams of income where producers are licensing beats for TV, you know, making sound packs, you know, other things of that nature. I mean, what would be your advice to upcoming producers as far as like figuring out those other streams of income? Because we all love to do this, but we also want to get paid, right? You know, so
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, there are many ways to make money today. You're absolutely correct. Like, you know, one of the ways that I haven't explored yet, but I know people have had success with, is beat leasing, and you can use sites like Airbit, for example. You keep all your money. You don't have to give a percentage. I think the only time you pay is for subscription. So people have had luck with that. But you know, whatever you choose, I think one of the things is to remember is that everything takes work. So it's not like, oh, let me just dip into I don't know, like making these sound packs and then or leasing the beats. Like, everything takes work. So even if you, for example, choose to go on a site like Airbit, you have to market yourself there. You have to build up the, you know, your profile, and then and actually have to work a little bit in order to get people to go to your site. You have to constantly update. So it's like with everything, and the same thing with sound packs. You have to keep constantly making new stuff, and you know, keep current with what's going on, and so in licensing it's the same. So even if you just work for these libraries or do stuff for production libraries, or go straight to the music supervisor, you still have to keep current. You have to make sure that you have, you know, plenty of options, and you know, it's just work. Like every avenue you choose, you still have to, you know, put a decent amount of work and time into it in order for it to be fruitful. Because it's easy to say like, oh, you know, I tried this licensing thing, it didn't work out, you know, but like, did you actually, you know, go in? Did you actually, you know, build relationships and stuff? And did you actually learn how to make the tracks that make tracks that actually are appealing to licensing? Because that's a whole other story. Like, a lot of people look at it like, oh, let me just put my throwaway stuff for licensing, but that's not how it works, you know?
Yes, you listed all those things and you're doing all of those things. We see it in real life, online. We definitely see your hustle. How would you say you're prioritizing between all those engagements now, between networking and actually making beats and marketing your work? Like, how are you thinking about your time, and what are you pouring into nowadays?
It's tough. It's one of my toughest problems, I guess.
For
like,
sure, yeah.
it's definitely like super hard to balance. Unfortunately, these days, I just have to kind of pick what has the most, you know, what has like what actually pays, and what I know is more guaranteed. So like, let's say if somebody said they need a sound pack, I know what more or less what the outcome of that is. So if I have a project with somebody who, you know, may or may not go somewhere, I have to prioritize and pick something that's the thing that I do know that it's gonna, you know, I guess pay.
Right. Yeah. That's real.
Like, at the end of the day, it's just, you know, at one point in your career, you have to kind of decide if it's something that you do professionally or if it's a hobby. And once you make the decision of it being, you know, your career, unfortunately, you have to start making these choices too, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Word. So, I mean, so what's next for Madli? I mean, like, we know you can't get ready to come out with a new sound pack. You have a couple of things on the table with some artists, and we know you did the Yelawolf track. Like what do you where do you see yourself in 5 years as a creative person, creative entrepreneur, so to speak?
I would really like to work with more artists, and I would like to have the time and the financial freedom to do so. So that's, I think, the main thing that I'm striving towards. Yeah, just whatever it takes to like either network or make more music for the catalog, and just I guess that's kind of like my main direction at this point.
Dope.
Is there anybody that you would like to work with specifically, or are you interested in developing new artists, or maybe some of both?
Yeah, I think both is the answer. I would definitely like to work with somebody, and then create the sound and grow it together. And but I also have like a bunch of people that I would like to work with, like Avery Wilson. I would love to work with. He's so super dope. Um, Kendrick, of course, but that's a close knit network there. But
Speak it.
one can dream.
Yeah, for
Speak
sure.
it, speak into existence.
Right. And there's a lot of like really good talent out there, and even emerging talent in New York. So I'm always like open to go into events, and finding the person whose grind is on point, and who's talented, who wants to work. So yeah, it's a little bit of both, I think.
True, true. And I mean, I know that you had a podcast yourself with your production partner Kenny Buttons.
Hmm.
Let's talk about that. The don't I'm sorry, I don't remember. The A Room, was that?
Yeah, it was the A Room podcast.
Yes. Yes. Very dope.
I enjoyed doing that too, but I think the main thing that happened was Kenny lives in Jersey and I'm in New York. So every time we wanted to record, I would go to Jersey and then be over there, and then it would take a day. As you guys already know, it takes a while to do it right.
Mhm,
It's not
mhm.
just the recording hour; it's just the editing, and then just kind of like prepping and all that stuff as well. So for me, it just took a day out of the week for
Mhm,
me.
mhm.
And at one point, it was just a little too much. Plus, I was traveling to Europe and Atlanta a lot, so I wasn't able to be as consistent as I had to. And I just felt like it was better to just take a break, rather than just kind of half-assing it.
No doubt, no doubt. If you're not gonna do it right, don't do it at all. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, I feel like stuff like that is needed, like podcasts like the A Room and things of that nature, for because there's a lot of people that they want to know how to do this. And
Yeah.
yeah, all this information is out there, but they still don't know how to get started, or they don't know, they're not around people who do it, so they're kind of like just clueless as far as getting their music career started, where to find beats at, how to make beats, how to be around artists and whatnot. So I think like stuff like that is really needed, you know.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's dope. So I know we don't have a lot more time. We're just gonna cap it off like this. I mean, do you have any other advice for emerging producers, or beat makers out there that may be listening to the podcast?
I think one of the things that I would want to say is um, the power of network, and the power of like just going out there and then putting yourself out there. That's something that I was super shy about, like for a very long time. Um, I think everybody is sensitive. Anybody who's creative is sensitive about the music and the work they put out, and everybody's a little scared and everybody's a little vulnerable. But I think it needs to be done, and also just just working with other people and being around other people and seeing how they do things is like super helpful. Asking for advice and asking for people's like experience, and then talking about people's experiences has been helpful for me, as well as just traveling and going to events and getting out of the studio and actually, you know, mingle and shake hands and you know, have a good time with people. That's what builds relationships, and it's easy to think, or it's easy to fall into like, oh yeah, let me just DM somebody on Instagram. But the power of like face to face, you know, communication it still trumps everything.
True, true. Well, Miss Madli, we want to thank you for your time. Rocking with us, as
Yeah,
you
of
know,
course.
extended
Anything for
fam.
you guys.
We always love rocking with you. You always got such a dope energy.
Be in touch.
Cool. So on that note, I'm Paves Infinite
I'm Bamada.
I'm Justin Raymond.
with our special guest, Miss
Of
Madli.
course. Thanks for having me.
Ooh, baby, baby.